Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Super Festival 2025. As usual, I am your host with the most, Jordan Sparks, Director of Technology and Workshop Coordinator at the Hand-Eye Society, here to introduce you to a roster of exciting speakers delivering some amazing talks. Fun fact, today we're actually live at Interaccess in Toronto. Well, not right now, at least. Consider this a loading screen for what's to come. But we'll be live on location very soon. In the meantime, be sure to check out the Super Festival website to learn more about the over 20 exhibited games we're showcasing in this year's event, more about our stream schedule, and where you can find our Tron arcade machines scattered across the city of Toronto. You can also sign up for our upcoming online workshops on our Eventbrite page, where you can learn about game development with us from anywhere in the world. Additionally, I want to give a shout out to our Sparktacular sponsors. Thank you to Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, Clever Endeavour, Charitable Gaming, the Kennedy Road Charitable Gaming Association, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto, as well as the following contributors for their support and their donations in kind, to help make Super Festival 2025 even greater. Well, I better get teleporting over to Interaccess. Stay tuned, and I'll see you live very soon.
Hey, wait for me! Whew. I'm Marco. Nice to meet you. Wait a minute. Ava, right? I mean, the Ava?
Do they understand what you're doing?
You mean climbing? There's no way they could get it. How you do it.
The mountain is in my gut, deep inside. There's only the mountain.
Humanity is driven by curiosity. We are never satisfied with what we have. We never stop gathering. We build. We expand. We explore. But we are not the first civilization to arrive here. We all share a similar path. But will we have a different future? We will build our own wonder.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hand-Eye Society's Super Festival 2025. We are here live at Interaccess in Toronto for the next group of talks. Now, we have an exciting day of talks for you. We have 2 talks today, but today we have a very special one for our first talk of the evening. First of all, we all love video games here, but one thing that a lot of people don't often think about is the performances that bring our favorite characters to life. The voices, the people behind those characters that say all the inspirational things and tell the stories that we love to see in games. However, it's important to know that those people and all the things that are involved in that phase of video game development. So I'd like to have a special talk today with ACTRA Toronto, the Actors Union, to talk about performances in games and what you need to know about them, and if you are a developer, how you can work with people from ACTRA. So I'd like to introduce from ACTRA Toronto, Taza Decker.
Thanks so much, Jordan, and good evening, everyone. We are so thrilled to be here. My name is Taza Decker, and I'm the Director of Outreach and Industry Development at ACTRA Toronto. Many thanks to the Hand-Eye Society. We're so excited to be here at Superfest to talk all about performance in video games. But you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from our fantastic ACTRA members. So I'm going to introduce tonight's moderator, Miles Dobson. Miles Dobson is an ACTRA member, host, and game industry advocate. As well as playing Nick on 4 seasons of The Next Step, you may have heard him in Reverse, 1999, and soon in an unannounced Ubisoft title. When he's not lending his voice to games, Miles is championing better collaboration between indie developers and professional performers and fighting for the rights of workers in front of and behind the microphone. Please join me in welcoming Miles Dobson to start this talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us all here. And thank you all for watching at home and for joining us here in the audience. Thank you for that introduction. The title of this panel is Leveling Up with ACTRA Performers. And over the next hour, we're going to be really going into depth in what really brings a performer's talents to your project and why they can increase and uplift the level of quality of your project. And that's something that goes beyond a trivial bell and whistle that might get cut for financial. I think a lot of the developers and students that we've talked to over the past year and change have been aware of actors in video games and wanting to have them in them, but we're a little bit apprehensive about getting on board with a union performer, usually because they have a vision of a big LA boardroom with $1 million budget or $1 billion budget and some kind of negotiation with an actor that's out of a scene of Entourage or something. And I think really what I hope that we get across to you today is that performance and that idea is a lot less scary than it actually is. And I'm hoping that we can also kind of enforce this idea with you of unity. And I think it would be remiss to not bring up the recent firings at Rockstar that happened a couple of days ago. If you're not aware, Rockstar Games lost 30 to 40 people. Take-Two fired them, and they were either unionizing or they were members of a union. And it's a shameful tactic that's meant to dissuade you from talking to other workers and joining together to make sure that we have the ability to fight for a fair wage and for our rights. So with all of that, especially with AI in the way and being a threat to not only our work, but also yours as creatives in the digital field, it's never been more important to encourage unionization. Enough of... thank you. So just as a bit of housekeeping, we're going to be talking for about 40 minutes or so about the topics that I have on my phone. And then at the end, if there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand. And there is also a slide going on in the background here that is a quick link to a newsletter thing that is definitely not something that you might want to sign up for if you're looking to work with ACTRA members in the near future. And that's the most that they will let me say. So anyway, without further ado, let me move on to my guest tonight for the panel. He is a versatile actor, writer, and speaker with an experience of stage, screen, and in AI and wellness. He led the short film Desi Standard Time Travel, earning Canadian Screen and Actor Best Actor nominations in 2023, and was nominated in 2025 for Allegiance and Potluck Ladies. Dolan, he's also a keynote speaker on excuse me, cognitive science, AI, and mental health, presenting for organizations like PepsiCo and GE. He's got an upcoming video game project that he refuses to tell me about, and a new TELUS Story Hive funded podcast, Leveling Up Mental Health. When it comes to mental health, are video games the hero or the villain? Please welcome Adolan H. Dar. Thank you. She is a Canadian actor and voice performer, best known as Phoenix in Ubisoft's Immortals Phoenix Rising, a role that earned her a Canadian Game Award nomination. Her video game work also includes Assassin's Creed Origins, multiple roles in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and in Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. Beyond her performance career, Alana works to amplify the voices of performers as a member-elected leader at Actra Toronto. Please welcome Alana Dunkelman. And lastly, but by no means least, I need more water here. She is a multidisciplinary actor from Scarborough and an advocate for equity in the arts. She stars as Lexi in all 4 seasons of Paramount's SkyMed, with credits including Ghosts, Slasher, Why the Last Man, and American Gods. She's also experienced in motion capture with roles in Watch Dogs Legion, playing Talia in Far Cry 6, and most recently Vale in Star Wars Outlaws. And as Executive Vice President of Actra Toronto and Chair of the Young Emerging Actors Assembly, she's championed inclusion and empowering emerging artists. Please welcome Mercedes Morris. And you can have this one.
Yes, thank you for having us. Of course.
If we can just kind of begin briefly, each of you, kind of talking about what your experience of game performance has been, going from no experience to now, and that experience of being a video game performer, and really where you'd like to see the video game industry coming up in the next 10 years or so in Ontario.
This, can you hear me this way? Yes? Labels here. Gotcha. Okay, lovely. Well, I actually started out doing theater, and so my first performance capture audition, I was just like, it's like a stage. I just want to be myself. I want to be comfortable, use my body, improv a little bit, explore the space. So I was really able to tap into my theater background, but also with my film experience, just like being nuanced on camera and knowing my angles and how to hit my marks. So my first audition was actually for Watch Dogs Legions, and I just went in there. I was myself. And
you booked immediately.
Yeah.
Wow.
that was my first audition. And I got to play several smaller characters and build up a relationship with Ubisoft, and they could see, okay, I was 3 women that day, but all 3 of them had a different walk. All 3 of them, had a different swagger, a different energy, different dialect if you need, so that, I'm grateful that they gave me that opportunity, but they also saw those skills. They recognized it in me immediately. And so when future roles came up, like Talia in Far Cry, they were like, wait, we've worked with this girl. Let's see what else she's got. That's the thing about actor performers. We do have very extensive resumes and a wide variety of skills. So I get to tap into different parts of myself, like horseback riding or music or different languages, like I said. But yeah, it started with that one audition and just going out there and trusting my skills and my years of practice. Yeah.
Would you like to see the industry
Oh, well, I'd love to see it continue to expand. I love that there's such a wide audience or fan base. I, as like the chair of the committee at ACTRA, I have to say I'm thinking about the younger performers and wanting there to be an industry that can support them. I want them to have that opportunity to get that shot, to get in the room and audition and just show their skills and hopefully have a wonderful, fruitful career. So my hope for the next 10 years is that we continue to grow and expand and give many more opportunities to many more performers.
Well, I don't know how to top that. I had a slightly different experience. My first booking was actually on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I had auditioned for the lead role, and they brought me back, and didn't go my way because she's amazing. But they brought me in for several roles and was able to get some motion capture experience. But I will tell you, the first day was so overwhelming because it's a completely motion capture specifically is such a different medium. It's not film and TV, it's not theater, but it is kind of like a weird mix of both. And my first day, Elias Toufexis was there, who is one of the top video game actors ever. And I actually knew him from Montreal, so he was very kind, and he like told me, he's like, T-pose, you put your arms out and you don't have your props in your hands. And it was really nice to have an experienced actor there. And that's, as a union leader, that's something that's really important to me, is preparing our members to be able to show up on set, show up in the volume, show up in the booth, and like be prepared so that they're able to perform on the spot and not be like me and go, oh my God, how do I do that? But I was very lucky to have some guidance. It was an amazing experience. And in terms of the industry, I mean, it's really exciting to see that there's so much investment from specifically the Ontario government and from the city of Toronto. They recognize that this is a exploding industry, and that is why we are doing so much outreach, because we know this is the future. Video games are the future, and we want to be alongside with it.
Yeah.
What was the question again? Okay, so I think I'm going to answer the question sort of a reverse thing, which is, I think video game acting is like the Olympics of acting. Like my two esteemed colleagues here mentioned, it is a combination of film acting mixed with theater acting. Plus, if you're in the voice booth, so you're just doing something beyond mocap, you are required to be an animation actor, a voice actor. You got to combine all three of those things to bring a video game character to life. And if you can't do even one of those things, they'll either replace you with someone else who can do at least one of those things. So sometimes there's 3 actors playing one character, right? Or, you can do those things you demonstrated with experience, and then they'll keep bringing you back to keep doing that work. I think in 10 years, video games are going to be like the movies for young people. Yeah. And for many of us who grew up on video games, that's what it replaced. Like for me, I grew up playing video games. I love it to down to the very essence of who I am. And some of the greatest stories I think have been told in the video game format. So what I really hope is that in 10 years, people recognize it for the art form that it is, including recognizing people like the actors, but also the developers. You're creating art. You're writing stories from nothing. You're coding art into this beautiful world that we get to play in. And we need awards for that. We need to celebrate that. And the truth is, video game as an industry as a whole brings in more money than any other industry combined. You can combine Bollywood, which is the biggest film industry. It's bigger than Hollywood, and it still makes less money than video games does.
And I think there may be people at home, or people who have an idea for a game, but it's their first project, or they're doing it out of their bedroom, and they might hear the way we're talking about motion capture and in the booth and those kind of things, and think, well, that's way too scary for me. I just have a little Yeti at home and stuff. So and why would they want to really choose a professional union actor versus someone on Fiverr or using, heaven forbid, Jimmer today. I don't use Jimmer. So for developers that might be thinking of working with us, I think I'll start with you, Adol, if you
Sure,
don't mind.
sure.
What would make a performer different than recording a non-actor or using someone from Fiverr or generative AI?
So I think the question you want to ask yourself is, do you care about the journey before the destination? So the experience of creating a game, if you were to use generative AI, in my opinion, is a journey that doesn't interest me as an artist. And frankly speaking, it probably doesn't interest any of you as a director or as a programmer, because your experience is, I'm going to input something in plain language and it's going to spit out the art I'm trying to create. The challenge is that's expedient and convenient. So I'm not going to try to make an argument and say working with a union actor is going to be as expedient or as convenient as putting in a prompt. That would be disingenuous. But what I will say is that working with a union actor will make that journey fun, which is a huge thing. What's the point of living if you're not having fun? It'll make it efficient, which is different than convenient. Efficient means that you're able to, in the moment, get the performance that you want from a professional who will be able to give you that performance. If you are a prompt writer, you are seeking that performance again and again and again. And I can tell you, my friends here have probably experienced this. 99% of the time, you don't know what you want. A producer or director is in the booth with you, and they're like, I wrote this line, and then the writer wrote that line, and they're listening in as well. And then you perform and like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think it could be done that way. That's amazing. And then you create something together with the synergy of not just your brain putting in, an input, it's the synergy of the brains that all come into it together. I can talk about the other benefits in terms of the financial. I think there's a little bit of a myth when it comes to that it's cheaper to work with generative AI. It actually that has not been proven to be true as of yet. But I think Ilana, some of the people more talk about some of the agreements we have as a union and the benefits of working with professionals as well. But I will say that think about it from the journey instead of the destination.
Ilana, I think if we can go a little bit more to the non-union aspect of I think there's often it's like, well, I can just do it $20 on Fiverr and that's good enough. And especially for someone that has a very low budget, they want the dialogue or they want the performance, but there's a cost benefit analysis going on. How would you say that kind of weighs on the mind of a professional performer, and then what would you say would be the benefit of it?
I want to tread lightly because I don't want to gatekeep acting.
Yeah.
I think that if someone wants to be an actor and they're, let's say a hobbyist, I think that's exciting. I want to encourage people. If you want to be a performer, go for it. But I will say that as a professional actor, and I can just speak for myself, but a lot of us have put in a lot of investment in training, in a lot of rejection, which kind of makes you kind of overcome and work harder to get better at your craft. A lot of us also work in different mediums. And I think, as Mercedes was saying, there's so many different skills that you can bring to the table. A lot of us have been in high pressure environment doing commercials. If you've ever been on a commercial, you got to perform. So I think that a lot of us bring things to our performances that have that come from having a career of training, of performing in different mediums, in just being an actor, and making that our livelihood, our career. And again, not to say that someone who is, let's say, a hobbyist isn't a good performer, but I think that there is something a little bit extra or a lot extra that a professional actor can bring to the table. And as someone who is a unionist, I think it's also really important to remember that if you are hiring union actors, you're also supporting the craft and the possibility of being able to support yourself in this career. Because we are able to get insurance and we're able to get retirement, and that's because we take our career seriously. We are dedicated to being performers.
Yeah, that's great. Mercedes, you want to chip in?
Yeah, these make perfect sense. I guess to add a little bit to that, there's a level with that experience, those years of training and like school. I went to post-secondary. I think there's just a professionalism and a level of standard that we as union performers now bring. Like we carry that pride with us. I think we're also extremely collaborative. And there's so much value that we kind of have in our back pocket that you be shocked. Like you said, sometimes you'll ask them for a line and it's like, I'll give it to you like this, and hey, I know a little Spanish. You know, what about that? Like I could switch it up for you, and you're like, whoa, like 2 for 1, like you know, and that comes from us just really loving our craft and loving to share and explore. And yeah, like I said, just that standard that we carry, I think that long term carries so much value and will save you. Like, you know, if we're gonna do it, let's do it once, pay for it well, and get the job done instead of having to like recast and reshoot and whatnot. Those can be some of the retype. Oh, another prompt, refresh. Come on, just regurgitate already. Like no. So yeah, really. Oh, and you know what I just thought about? We also have a lovely network of other union performers. So you might be trying to cast another role and be like, oh, hey, I actually know my union friend, Ivan Sherry. Throw his name in there.
Name drop.
You know what I mean? So that it's like a built-in network. Look at you. We can be like assistant casting directors. But yeah, I truly I can't talk in. I know. Don't you heard that, but you didn't hear that. But
Go through casting.
we're very
Proper
go through it. But I mean, no, if we're being honest though, we're talking about indie developers who may now only be for the first time understanding what casting is. So it is useful to have a performer who can maybe show you the ropes a little bit. Of course, call ACTRA. If you're working with ACTRA, call. We have lovely staff that will be grateful to answer all of your questions. But I'm saying that little built-in knowledge and network, it's very valuable. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that kind of ties in directly to my next question, as though we practiced this before we did the video. Because I think a lot of devs won't have any experience with the process of working with actors. And so how do you feel, all of you, or whoever wants to chip in, maybe Alana, since you have the mic first, how would, without going into too much of the weeds, how would you get a union actor on the project? And then also, how would you even get the kind of performance that you want, especially if you've never directed an actor before, or you know, the only things you've seen are behind the scenes videos on YouTube or things like that?
Well, first you contact ACTRA. That's number one. That's how you get a union actor. And I think I'll just try to keep the process. I kind of see it twofold. One is, let's say, you know, you're able to get a little bit of funding and you want to kind of offload that to someone who has experience with casting. The union can point you in the right direction in terms of reaching out to an experienced casting director who would know the actors who have experience in Toronto, who you know, they could make suggestions, and that would be a whole thing that I don't want to cover because that's not our purview. Yeah, of course.
What's the? I can imagine someone's going like, yeah, but I could just put something out on Twitter. I could just be a non-union person, and I could just put a thing out on TikTok and have people do duets where they audition for the role. So why should I spend money on a casting director?
I think that, well, from conversations that I've had with developers, sometimes they get hundreds of submissions, which is super exciting. As I said, thousands. And again, really love that people are able to express themselves. But a casting director can actually narrow that down for you to, let's say, you know, top 10 submissions so that you don't have to sift through hundreds, 200, 300 submissions where you kind of just like zone out because you're listening to so many different auditions. So it, yes. Yeah, does that kind of answer the question? Oh yeah, do you want to add to it?
Yeah, can I add? Also, the vetting process is at a higher level too. So like I can't remember who said this, but you don't necessarily know what to look for in terms of what makes a good or bad actor. You don't know what classes are legitimate. Anyone can put anything on a resume. Anyone can say they've worked with so and so, and casting directors are professional vetters. Like that's what they spent years and years honing, and then they have the network. So you might be like, I want so and so. I don't know even know how to contact them, but you could contact a casting director and they have the network to get maybe a big name on that you were like, I don't think they'd ever want to do my indie game, but maybe they would. I've done things like short films that people have reached out through either casting or my agent, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go do that because it's interesting or the story's fun, and we're perfectly allowed and supported to do that with our union. So that is a benefit also, other than having to sift through also thousands and thousands of applicants.
And so then what would be some of the best practices if you have an actor in the room to really be able to get the kind of performance that you want from the time that you have that actor? Because I would imagine if a budget is tight and you are using a professional actor, you want to try and get the best takes and not have to keep paying us all the time. But if you want to, you can keep paying us.
Something that might sound simple is like you as the director or the developer really understand your story. Like if you're the clearer you are, then the more we actually have like a finish line to kind of reach. And be as descriptive as you can. Don't like overwhelm the actor, of course, but try to help us along. And what I'd always suggest is leaving a little wiggle room for the actor to explore. Like give them a take or two of what you've asked for, what you've requested, but then say like, hey, you want to just play with this one? You want to try something different with this one? And you'll be amazed sometimes. It might be at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, or it can just absolutely blow your mind. So that's like a little. It's small, but
No, I love that.
Give them a little time to explore.
Can I add? So something I experienced on I'm gonna drop it. Video game name on Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Weren't you the lead on that?
Yeah, wasn't I? No, I'm kidding. No. So specifically on this game, what I really appreciated with the process, compared to other games where you would go in and you would just do your lines. So it would just be your line, not hearing what the other actor was responding, like how they. So it wasn't really a conversation. It was just line, and then they would kind of mesh it together, which is fine. Like I understand that that's a quicker process, but something that I really enjoyed and maybe something to work towards, and obviously this isn't accessible to everyone if you don't have a tech, but if you do, something that I really appreciated as an actor was that either the director would read the other lines for me, so I was responding and it was a conversation, or if the other actor's lines were recorded, the tech was able to play them for me, so it sounded way more natural. And I think specifically for that game, it was a bit more of a comedy, so you wanted to make sure the jokes were landing. But even in any style, I think it's really important to make sure that it sounds like the actors are speaking to each other. Typically, you don't record with each other. There are sometimes projects where you'll record in an ensemble. I think that's more animation. I haven't I think in motion capture, obviously, like you're doing it together, but in the voice booth, I've never experienced an ensemble recording. You're typically by yourself, which that in itself is like a skill that a lot of us have developed, because you have to imagine how that other person is speaking to you. But that's just a little tip. If you end up being able to do that, it'll get a much more natural performance. So yeah, that was something that really stuck with me.
Yes. Do we have to have a booth to use a voice actor? A union voice actor? Do we have to?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. But I don't know how to answer this question.
I can answer. I can answer. Okay, so I think after during the pandemic, many actors purchased their own setup. So I don't think this is everybody. If you're looking at specifically Toronto, there are a lot of affordable voice booths if you do want to end up going outside of actors using their own voice booths. But I will say, as someone who had to adapt during the pandemic, and I was very privileged that I was able to afford some equipment. Um, you can record from home. You can either, I know some developers like to just send the script and then you can record on your own and then send it in and kind of work it out based on their feedback. But then there's also things like Source Connect where you can basically record from home, and then that data is then like transferred over to the tech or whoever you're online with. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Obviously, that comes with its own issues that again, not my purview, but you might have a different sound based on the different actors that you're using in their setups. But I don't think that it's like completely a problem. And I think a lot of projects have been done that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on a couple of indie projects that they rented some actor who I've never met, but apparently lives in Toronto. He had his shed in the back garden was his recording booth.
It's not sketchy at all.
Random shed.
Cool.
Okay, this is how I died. And it was a fully fleshed out recording studio that he lent out to people that needed indie projects, and that was how we managed to get the project done.
Yeah.
And this guy's back here, a dog. It was great.
Oh, wonderful. I think like technology.
Was it in the West End? It was in the East End.
There's more than one. There's so many options. A lot of shed booths.
Shed booths are a thing.
Yes.
If you are looking for those Google shed booths, hopefully that will bring up some good results for you.
In incognito.
And some work or cupboards. I know a lot of actors who are doing voice works in their closet.
Under like duvets.
Duvets, or in little cubbies that they can put duvets in.
Or hotel rooms, but if you're doing any screaming, just let the downstairs know that you're not murdering someone, which is actually a great way to cover up a murder, actually. Just be like, I'm auditioning.
Oh, sorry, this blood is for my audition.
And then
Was that okay to say?
You guys are very funny. So do we have any experience? I mean, we haven't always been union actors. Do we have any experiences that we can share, either that we know ourselves or that others have shared with us of the non-union experience from that side?
Mm-hmm.
And then also, like, why does union membership protect us, and why should developers care about that?
I'd like to share just one story that I think is important for people to hear, because I have a wonderful friend, and she does non-union voice work, and she did a game where she was paid $150 US flat. It was a project off of voices.com, and that was a little known game called Five Nights at Freddy's. And that was it. So if anyone knows that game, and I'm sure a lot of people do, it made hundreds of millions of dollars. $500 million. And she was actually one of the, I don't want to say a main role, but prominent enough that she is invited to Comic-Cons. And she made $150 US, but flat. And there was no additional compensation. So I understand that voices is sometimes, or performance can be bells and whistles, but and like the bulk of the project is obviously the developers and the coders and all that blood, sweat, and tears that goes into a game before it, the actors even get there. But to me, that really broke my heart in terms of like, that's a character that people love, and she never got another cent for that. Yeah.
Thank God I don't quite have any horror stories. But I will say, just in general, people overlook small things like taking a break and getting a little food, just having your substance. We're in the booth, we're giving our all. Sometimes as performers, we're tapping into very personal, places to bring ourselves to these roles and give the player or the audience just something that they can really feel and connect with. So something like, getting my break on time, gonna go for a little walk, get a little breather, get some water, having access to a place to sit and actually like take a load off. They seem very small, but they contribute significantly to a performer's well-being and their safety and their ability to do their work. So it's things like that that I value.
I think that
for ACTRA.
just reminded me. Show of hands who knows Dragon Ball Z in this room. I mean, I don't even know why I asked. Famous story of the guy who does Goku's voice passing out in the booth, bleeding throat, etc., etc. That entire production was non-union. That's why he was passing out in the booth and having blood coming out of his throat at the time. Power Rangers was also a non-union production. Where are they now? And I think that is
another great example is the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah. Do you want to go into that Blair Witch Project?
Yeah, so Blair Witch Project, non-union project. I think it had, I don't know what the budget was, quite low. You remember this horror movie back in the day? Those actors became overnight successes, like really famous right away because the movie did so well. They never got paid a cent for 35 years, but part of their contract was they were forced to do media appearances without having to get paid for it. And so they did because a lot of so here's the thing, right? Like we live in a scarce world. We're constantly competing for resources, and actors are no exception to that. We're competing for roles all the time. So each one of them thought any appearance is another opportunity. And this is something we're told all the time, right? Exposure. You get exposure. But at the exposure that's not equitable, I think what happens is if you support your brother and sister unions, that also bodes well for the work that you're going to do. So unions trying to developers trying to unionize, right? That means you have support for that in other industries. And we, all tides rise together, that sort of thing. If that stuff starts to eliminate and we all start to accept a lower basement or a lower baseline, then that becomes the new normal. But not just for us as actors, that's the new normal for anyone that can be exploited. And unless you're in the 0.1% of society, there's a good chance you can be exploited, whether you're a producer or a director. And I mean 0.1%, which means you can still be a millionaire and be exploited.
So. And that's kind of a theme that runs throughout tech in general, tech industry, of just like hustling hard and sleeping under your desk and what have you. And I think there's been a lot of pushback on unions in those kind of sectors because of that kind of culture.
Yeah, of course.
How do you, well, you say of course, but how do we get out of that mentality? And how do these wonderful indie developers that we're talking to go against the grain in that way without ostracizing themselves? Because that's something that we as actors, my first agent said, well, no, don't go union because you'll get less work. Which is just, you're not wrong, but also I could just be scanned and put into AI.
Yeah, you'll get less $150 jobs that then use you for the next 30 years. Sure, that's less work. I think what you're talking about is a very deep question on the challenges of late stage capitalism. So this could be a whole.
I didn't know we were going.
I know. Like, I'm sorry, but this could be a long. This could be a long conversation. Well, we probably only have 15 minutes. Yay. But this is a challenge that the globe world, all of us are struggling with, which is how much work is too much work. And why have we decided with this one life that we have that this is how we want to organize society? Like, why do we have to work 9 to 5, right? Like, what is this? Like, we just all agreed to do that, after the assembly lines got invented. So I think it's a very interesting question, but if I were to simplify it at the risk of oversimplifying it, be the change you want to see. So if you don't create the environment that you would want to work in, why are you asking someone else to work in it? And Elon Musk creates an environment in which he would never work in, He creates this weird cult-like mentality that I have to put in 80 hours a week at X for a ton of money. But if we all decided that's not the society we wanted, it would change. And people like that wouldn't have that power. So at some point, you have to ask yourself, what is the environment that I would want to work in? What kind of person do I want to be to other people? And kind of how much is enough? Like, do I have enough? And am I okay with this? Because the truth is, more rarely leads to more. I'll say it that way.
Quality over quantity. Sorry.
It's really late to get no. I think that I mean that's. I think that's what's been. I personally have gotten way more involved in the union and organizing and speaking to non-union actors and speaking to our performers, and I think that it's something where we all have to stand together in terms of being able to maintain a certain like I don't want my friends to be working for I mean $150, like yes, of course that's really nice for like an hour of work, but we know that we bring value to projects that would maybe eventually you know be able to sorry I got a little distracted. I think that ties into what Adolan says, that we all have to stand behind sticking together in terms of maintaining rates. And that's something that I hope that eventually we can have people who are putting themselves out on voices.com or consider themselves more hobbyists that maybe do want to eventually join the union, that they would join us so that we have those standard rates and we don't race to the bottom.
It's good. I mean, they covered a lot. I feel like my brain started to go into like AI territory and getting like I say it all the time, I'm so corny, but I always say like keep the human in humanity. Lead with your heart. I think that art requires art. Art requires heart. That's what I was trying to say. You know, all those like cliche things, but it like it's true. We can't just be all about like the bottom line. And I think when we all take our time and consider everyone, like you said, creating the environment that we want to work in, and just like showing up and doing our best every day. ACTRA has this thing, we call it the 3 C's: control, compensation, and consent. I mean, you think about it, it's very, it's simple. It seems basic to ask for that, but I think that message gets overclouded by like greed. But I think if we all stay united and keep pushing those ideas, control, consent, and compensation, we'll be okay.
Does anyone in the audience have a question? If so, please feel free to raise your hand. If not, I have a little anecdote to read on.
I was going to ask a question.
Yes, please do.
I myself am a video game developer, and I'm quite unfamiliar with the process of working with actors. So I was surprised to hear that you record your lines individually and don't have that experience of being in the room. But I've also never made a TV show or a movie or a play. In your experience as actors, what is the tangible difference? Like, how does it change how you work to have to do that thing of imagining in your head what the other person is saying? Because I find that really weird. Like, it's almost like the game companies themselves are creating a condition in which they're going to make less of a good product, which doesn't surprise me. Being a person who works in games, finding out, oh, like they could just have all the actors show up at the same time and get a better scene.
Yeah.
But they chose instead to do this one at a time.
Yes.
I'll just for the sake of the microphone, the basic summation, if I'm correct me
Why
if
are
I'm
game
wrong.
companies stupid?
Why are game companies stupid? Why is it that actors are not often in an ensemble in the room to record their dialogue? Why are we in the booth on our own? Why is that not an issue?
I'm sure there's so much to share. Like off the top of my head, I feel like I know they I think the thing is like we're all artists. There's like different approaches to the art where, you know, some folks are in their book or on their computers and some are out on the stage, head up, you know what I mean? And so it's just understanding those small, like it's well intentioned. I'm sure they're just like, well, these actors are great, they can do anything. But in actuality, our gift is our ability to connect, right? And so I can be honest, my first game when I did, not my first, my second game when I did Far Cry and I was in the booth doing all those little, the lines of like, get down, oh, they're behind us, all those, wild lines almost.
Yeah.
There's no one in there with me, and I went home every day just wondering, like, am I wetting the bed? And I literally listened back to the game, and I was like, it was good, but it could have been better if I was connecting with the other person. If I heard their take before I delivered, I took it upon myself in the next game to ask the gentleman in the sound booth, do you have the other performers' lines? Are you busy? Do you have the script? Would you read it for me? And I can tell the difference because now it's a flow, it's an exchange. They might have done something entirely unique, which might inspire me in the moment. That's why we matter more than AI, because we can be inspired in the moment. We can draw from our unique experiences. We could play. AI can't play. So anyways, keep the human in humanity, folks. Keep the human in humanity.
Yes. That's right.
An anecdote that I could recall is often that there's the games industry is very knowledgeable on the making of the game, but outside of that, there is a lot of blind spots. For me personally, as a person with an English accent, this is my favorite story to tell. You will tell it, Sasha. The Watch Dogs Legion was set in a near future London. With gangsters. And so, my audition for the part that I auditioned for was very like that. So I kind of, big boy almost.
A little Brummy, yeah.
Kind of like London accent now, but just further along. And the part ended up going to someone that sounded like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins, because there is a disconnect on the realities of those kind of things. And so I think there is, to a degree, there is a level of education when it comes to how developers look at those kind of situations and update their understanding. But then you also have, there are people, certainly in animation, I think a little bit more than in video games, Justice League Unlimited, all of the DCAU stuff was recorded on some level. And you can tell, because that's why it's so good. It's Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill were in the same room at the time, and it was like a play. You hear Kevin Conroy talking about how he thought, this is just a play. This is Hamlet. I'm here and I'm doing Hamlet. And so that's, I think, there's a disconnect there when it comes to gaming as well.
Well, let's continue to talk and solve that. Right?
I just want to share though that I'm sure the reason is scheduling.
Yeah.
I'm sure the reason is scheduling. That's and money, that like you need a bigger booth, you need more mics. Maybe not so much me, but actors tend to be very busy, booked and busy. So maybe, but not to defend that process. I do agree that like being in an ensemble is I feel like the performances are heightened. It's way more engaging, but just that it's probably a scheduling thing.
That's the thing. Just speaking as a developer, I think a lot of times audio is considered a problem to be solved.
Right.
Whereas an actor will see it as an opportunity to create.
Yeah.
Perspective, like, okay, we got to get the audio done. We're on with singers, let's get them in the booth, let's get them done. We're on a 6-month deadline, so it's scheduling, yes. But I also think to go to the problem of late stage capitalism, if people had the time and the space to create, games are extremely high pressure, and usually by the time you get to audio, we don't put it early in the process. We put it at the part of the process where we're running out of money, we're running out of time, and everybody's impatient.
Yeah.
And part of it is because of script block, and part of it is because that's just how a game gets made. We're not going to record the audio before we know what's happening. And I think that creates the conditions where the actors end up getting a bit of the short end of the stick.
It's the same as game writing.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you talk to a video game writer and how bonkers it is trying to write a script that you don't see the rest of the game for, and then it turns out the beginning and the end have been changed several times over since the last time you saw it 3 years ago.
Oh my God.
It's very much that, and I think it is. I think unfortunately it's a cultural thing that we have to love, which is kind of part of what we're doing at Actor, is trying to like elevate performance and trying to highlight the performance matters from an earlier point with students and what have you, so that then that becomes a thing like, oh no, it shouldn't be just a bell and whistle that we kept. It should be something that is, I like the term ludo-narratively important. We also have a question from the chat as well. Ludo-narratively is my favorite.
We have a question from the chat, you all, and
Hello, chat.
Hey, chat.
question, the Heckin' Funky question from Heckin' Funky TV.
Hey, Funky, let's go.
I'd like to ask, what is the biggest draws as actor members to work with indie devs, and what experiences collaborating with game devs has been the most or least rewarding?
Oh, that's cool.
Sorry, what was the second part? Can you repeat the second part?
What experiences collaborating with game devs have been the most and least rewarding?
Least rewarding.
For the first part, I think passion. I think it is so. I think like I've been very blessed to work with some of the larger studios, and I'm not saying that process has been amazing, but I think that there is something so exciting being part of a passion project and working with a smaller team. To me, like bringing that to life and working with someone who's just like putting their all into it, like is a dream. Like that feels like going back to theater school, and you're just like getting it done.
For me, I'm just a nerd. The idea of being a video game character is a dream come true for me in general. Even if it's a character that has 3 lines and somehow has naked fan outs on it. I'll tell you later. So, you know, I mean, I grew up with Sonic. I've been a gamer all my life, and it is an absolute dream to be able to be voicing a character and hopefully mocapping and what have you. I mean, I'm envious of these lot because they've all had these incredible experiences that I'm hoping to achieve myself. And in terms of best and worst, you guys might have worst better than me, because I just had to pet a dog in a shed.
I've never had a negative experience with a developer. Like as an individual, never. They all work their butts off. They're all excited. They're excited to meet you because half of them are looking at your face all day, you know, like, and so they're like they want it or hearing your voice. So I've only had and have a lot of respect for developers. I just want to make sure that we've answered any questions. We only asked and only one person put up their hand, but any other questions? We don't have a lot of time. Yeah. Yeah.
Mercedes, what makes you want to do video games?
Okay, I just love to entertain in general. So like the idea of a video game was just another opportunity to connect with like a different fan base, different people across the world, and you know, when I get a DM from someone in Brazil who played Outlaws, and they're like, and I have to translate it and go put it in Google. I'm like, what is this person saying? I love that. It's just like I love playing. I love diving deep into a character and bringing it to life, and having someone, the player, the audience, someone connect with something so small and specific in it to care enough to like reach out. I love that. So yeah, I think it's just connecting with a very passionate fan base. I love that. I can't say I've had a negative experience, but one that will always be really special in my heart was my audition for Far Cry. And I was leaving, I did my scene. And by the way, there are some developers who really, when they see something in you, they're so invested. I auditioned for this character, and they sent me a note, and they're like, it's really good, but your Spanish accent just needs a little work. And they booked a session with me, with the voice director, a dialect coach, for an hour to practice my Spanish, and they gave me another shot at the audition, and I killed it. And I remember about to leave, and they're like, "Wait, are you any good at like music, like rapping? Because this character, we're thinking she's a rapper." And I was like, "Is that recording? Let's go." Ain't it crazy how I'm brand new to the game? And I just started spitting bars, and they were all like shocked, like jaw on the floor. And I got to bring that my music skill to the character Talia. She has like a performance on the rooftop, and it was just like, I'm doing the thing.
That's the most, I think we can all agree. Going in the booth, doing the thing, and then having them be like, "Oh my god, that was so good." It's just so satisfying as an actor to have been hired for a part and then have someone just be like, "That was perfect. That's exactly what I want."
Yeah. And it's also weirdly cool that it's like I'm not in costume. I don't have hair, makeup. You know, I don't have those props to really rely on. If you're watching my performance, you're technically seeing a stick person of me that this other team animated and brought to life, and I think that is so cool to go from like a T pose with all these dots in this big white room with hundreds of cameras, and then to see the final product. Like, I love being a part of that creation. So yeah, good vibes over here.
So cool. Okay, I think that wraps up our panel. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to let's get a round of applause for our.
Thank you.
So yeah, please follow us all on our socials. We need the followers. Please follow Actra Toronto. If you're curious about anything, please feel free to check out the Actra website. If you are interested in working with us, we are available and ready to take your call.
Yes.
Callers are standing by.
Yeah.
And I think on that, thank you very much for watching, and please stay tuned for more fantastic talks from Hand-Eye Society.
Yes.
And now OBS.
So it's been over a week since I arrived here, and I'm still not sure if this house is a gift or a joke. Every night I go to bed wondering who sent me this letter and this key, and I wonder why they did it. I'm leaving behind this tape recording in case I disappear or something happens to me.
The cars, birds, and trees are the key to entering this place.
Who are you? Are you behind all of this?
Yeah. like that, but once I started playing it, like really playing it, that's when everything changed. I found these weapons and armor, I'd master them, and my character just kept getting stronger. And the attack combos, once I figured out how those worked, the power was unimaginable. But the story is what got me. It really sucked me in, and it showed me something about myself that I didn't even know was there. And now I don't think I can ever go back.
Sir, this is a liquidation store.
Oh, right,
The tide's rising. Wishlist sunken stones on Steam.
Well, sank me.
Hidden Duck Digital.
Clean getaway.
Clean getaway.
Wayfarer 3, this is Mission Control. We're detecting high levels of hallucinogens in the atmosphere on Gliese 667C and abnormalities in your driver's vestibular system. Please take off and return to the nearest space agency outpost immediately.
Okay, left, go left. Wait. Okay, go down. No, stop hitting things. Wait. Ship is tilted left. Ribs. Right. Ribs. Left.
free myself and me know deep down me I'm into play. Just blend with my light. Forget that girl. Fuck all those lights. I can see your future. It's looking bright. Just blend with my light. I put it in. They ain't go hide. He knew I had to flee. He knew I had to free myself, and we know deep down we are meant to play.
This piece is called Beat Stacker. It's supposed to be kind of like a kid's introduction to making music and a little like hello to the creative process for kids in a really approachable way. So it's based off like a kid's block sorting game. You know, you sort the wood when you're a little kid, you have little blocks. So it's like that, except it introduces a musical aspect to it.
What I'm so impressed with is that this was exactly what you wanted to make. Yeah. And you like really followed through on like the clarity of your original vision is like right in front of you. It's really impressive.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's second talk of Super Festival 2025 in our second day of talks, and we are live here once again at Interaccess. Hope everybody is doing all right. Now, today we have another talk after our first one that's a little bit different. Today, we need to understand that playtesting is an important part of games, and sometimes it's very hard to playtest a game, realize what exactly it means to people, and how we can improve our games. Today, talking about structured playtesting, industry feedback, and all the many lessons learned, I present to you a grid postmortem from Antonio Maselli. Take it away.
Yeah, let's go, come on. Thank you very much for joining me on this lovely Tuesday evening. I hope everyone got here safely and will get home safely as well. Before we get into this, hands up, how many of you have either heard of or actually came to our first grid event back in June of this year? And it's okay if you haven't. Okay, we got a couple. Okay, excellent. So just sort of off the top, so you know what we're going to be talking about. We'll be talking about structured playtesting a little bit in the beginning, the philosophy behind it, why I started to put together this event, talk about the event itself, the organization, and then a lot of the lessons learned after the fact. So let's just get right into it. Who the heck am I? As Jordan said off the top, my name is Antonio. A little bit about me. I am a 10-plus year improviser. I've been improvising all over the city. I also have a Shotokan Karate black belt after studying for 15 years. And I am a big professional wrestling enthusiast. What the heck does any of this qualify me to do an event like, a structured playtesting event? Well, I'm also a 15-year software developer. I was the at the first ever Level Up Student Showcase. So if you ever heard of the Level Up Student Showcase, I was at the very first one, back when they were no sponsors, back when they held it at the Tiff Bell Lightbox on the 3rd floor. And technically speaking, our game won that event. So yay for me. I founded my part-time company, Mega Power Games, back in 2020, and we released Deep Powerball on Steam in 2023. And I'm also an Ontario Creates Futures Forward grant recipient in this very building where I took the course, actually. So this is 6 years later. And then most importantly, I've participated in over 40 live in-person and online conventions since 2018. If you have been to any event in the Greater Toronto area, you will have seen this face, that head, me chilling my game for 7+ years. And the reason for that is because I do this part-time. The grid is actually my tertiary side hustle. Mega Power Games is my initial side hustle. And I have a day job as a development manager at the Toronto Star, which I use the funds from that to fund the game. Change the mic. Sorry out there, internet land. Are we good? All right. There we go. Okay. Well, to everyone out there in internet land, you completely missed the intro, but that's okay. Oh, they heard. Beautiful. All right. So how to playtest as a small solo dev team. I want to talk about just sort of general playtesting before we jump into things, because we need to have that sort of level set before we sort of talk about why I put together the grid, why it was important. So by definition, playtesting, the process by which a game designer tests a new game for bugs and design flaws before releasing it to market. Yeah, it's self-explanatory. You make a game, you want other people to try it, to find the fun, to help you determine what makes your game great, what makes it not so great, and to make improvements as you go on. For large studios, if you've worked at a large studio, if you've been to a large studio, they have this established pipeline in place for playtesting, either through, their own QA team, whether they outsource it, etc. They have the dedicated resources to do it. They also have dedicated community outreach and testing. Those bigger companies have those fan bases where they can reach out and say, hey, we released this new demo, we released this new version, we want you to try it. Please, tell us what you think. And then as well as various public events that they do as well, which can be costly. And if you're a solo or a small studio, very likely, how many game devs do we have in the room? I assume you're all game devs to some degree. Yes. Okay. And either you're working solo or in a small team, let's say less than 5 people. That means you're wearing multiple hats. That means you are not just coding. You are not just an artist, a musician, product manager, project manager. You're also testing all of these, everything that you're making as you're making it. And that is a lot of burden on the brain, because you just, it can become overwhelming. And especially when I was, starting out with the Powerball, it was a lot of the same things. You don't want to necessarily, test and have that testing interfere with development. And this comment is, very important. How many of you leave the testing until you're very deep into development because you don't want the testing to sort of take up that time and that space, right? I see a couple of nods, which makes sense, and a hand raise as well. Was that a question, or you're just agreeing with? Yeah, agreeing with the point, right? But that's the thing, right? If you have a limited amount of resources, testing can be left by the wayside until you're well past ideation, well past the prototype, well past even an alpha stage, and really looking and finding what makes your game fun. You could go to public conventions as well, but if you don't have the money and the resources to do it, that can also be costly. I am lucky and privileged enough, again, because I had the day job, that I could sort of funnel the some of the funding into my game dev pursuits. In the case of the Powerball, I built the prototype with the group that I worked with back in 2018, and I believed in it so much that I basically offered to produce the project and
and I asked a friend of mine, I said, hey, there's a convention in Ottawa next month. It's $500 for a booth. Let's take our janky prototype on the road and see what people think. And, I pride in, I'm glad that I sort of did that sort of public playtesting approach because I was able to get the game in front of a lot of people very quickly. We're lucky enough to live in a province where there's a lot of different events that you can take your game to and have it tested. But it can be costly and you may not have the necessary funds to do it. So, and then I also added friends and family in here. Yes, you can ask your friends to play your games. You can ask your mom to play your game or your dad to play your game, but there is an inherent bias there, and you may not get the critiques that you necessarily want. So what do you do? Let's talk about Game Slice. Has anyone ever heard of Game Slice? Has anyone ever participated in Game Slice? Yes, it was. Okay, one person, but that's wonderful. Game Slice was, I believe, the first structured playtesting event that was held in the province, maybe even worldwide. I mean, it was a very unique event, but a relevant one to me because very early on there was this opportunity to take a prototype, put it in front of both game devs and the general public, and have them play test it in a very early phase and leave actual feedback. The way that it basically worked, where was that anyone who attended the event, there was an expectation built in that they were going to give you that detailed feedback. The event facilitators would basically ask all the developers, hey, give me 5 to 10 questions that you want your play testers to answer. And it was curated per developer. So I could say, hey, what did you think when, X did Y or XYZ or whatever? And my set of 5 to 10 questions would be different than another developer's 5 to 10 questions. But when you arrived at the event, you would just need to bring your machine, the questions would be there, the pens would be there, and everything would be set up for you. And the expectation was that the people coming through the door would be giving you that feedback. And I participated in this event for 2 years. Actually, I did it for 2 years straight. And I think over the course of those 2 years, I had 50 to 75 sheets of paper of people actually filling in significant comments on the game. And those comments that those people left were a big chunk of, the feedback that I took to heart and actually implemented in my game. Because if you know that you have, 50, like even 15 plus people giving you the feedback on a particular thing that may be good or may be bad about your game, you're going to take that to heart. If 15 people think that, 150 will, 1,500 people will, very likely. Unfortunately, that Game Slice ended in 2022 for a variety of reasons, COVID being one of them. The company downsized immensely. But the event was so relevant to me and to all the developers that were there. I believe at its peak, they had, I want to say somewhere in between 100 to 200 developers showcasing their games in the same room. That's a lot of games. It's a lot of people. And there was a big demand for it because nearly everybody in that room were small teams. It was a free event. If you were a developer, they would vet you, and if you got accepted, free to attend. If you were a playtester, free to attend. They really made it accessible to anybody who wanted to playtest or who was developing, and it just the accessibility of it all was mind-boggling to me. And this event had stayed with me for many years. So I had an idea. And the idea was to iterate upon what had already worked, but with changes, slight changes that would make it different, and changes that I thought would improve upon the successful formula. The first change: no general public. Game devs only, or anyone affiliated with the game dev industry.
the best feedback I've ever received when I was developing the Powerball came from other devs, from publishers, from anyone who had ever worked on a video game in any capacity. And, you know, whether you're an artist, a musician, anyone who's ever worked on a game, you have that mindset in terms of where the fun may be found. And I wanted to keep that as a significant part of what I wanted to do. So no general public, just developers. That was the first thing. And change number 2, limiting devs, testers, and restricting areas. Okay, so this was something, and you're going to see it in the second half, that sort of worked, sort of didn't. But what I had envisioned in my mind was as people came in, I would have designated areas where I would send people, you know, to a certain area of games. They would play test all the games in that area, and that would guarantee that any developers who were on site would receive 5 to 10 play testers over the course of the evening. It was guaranteed, right? I wanted to make that guarantee and allow for more quality experiences from everybody. And then the things that did not change, keeping the event free, prizes, food, and just a general game dev community. Obviously, those. And thus, the Games Reviewed in Development event was born. That is what the grid stands for. Surprise, surprise. That is one of the questions if anybody ever asked. That's what it stands for. And I think it's apt, but grid just sounds better. Here's the thing. In doing this event, it was up until the night of the event, mostly a solo endeavor by me. So how did I do it? Years of convention experience and tapping into existing resources. Up until the grid, the biggest event or convention that I ever did or put on was a 200 square foot booth at Fan Expo when we launched the Powerball. A lot of logistics coming into play with that when you're dealing with internet, when you're dealing with, assets, staff, volunteers, all of it. And a lot of those experiences I thought I could carry over into organizing an event such as this. The streak, yeah, okay. Let's talk about this. So up until I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to do the event until I had certain assurances. One was getting buy-in from Toronto Games Week because it was a perfect time to do it. There was a lot of stuff happening. XP Summit was happening. So in January, I applied for a grant. While I did not get the grant, Toronto Games Week staff met with me, and I was grateful that they did. And they basically said, well, how can we help you? What do you need from us? And the next 10 words I said were the most important words that I had said this year, and that was, get me a venue, I'll take care of the rest. And they called my bluff. We'll get to them calling my bluff. The second assurance was buy-in from Unity, specifically Unity, because they had sponsored every single Game Slice event from 2018 to up until they closed in 2022. And Unity at the time was going through some stuff. If you've got some chuckles, if you're a game dev and following along with Unity, you know what that sort of stuff was that they went through. But at that time, Unity was pretty stabilized. I had a client partner rep, and I asked my client partner rep, hey, do you think they would be interested in running something like this back? They connected me with another rep at Unity. Within 2 sentences, and at the time, the event wasn't announced and I did not have a venue. But Unity had bought in, and that was all I needed. That was the confidence that I needed, that I said, screw it, we're going. Toronto Games Week comes back and says, hey, we got George Brown for you. And I was like, thanks. Now I guess I got to do the event. That was... And then things just continued to go from there. Southern Ontario Game Devs, this logo is now officially out of date because when I did the deck, they are now currently officially known as A Game Expo. So shout outs to A Game. XP was next to jump on. When I reached out, they donated some prizes for the event. And then at that time, I thought this was all it was going to be until I had people start reaching out to me. Specifically, it's hard to see there, but the Canadian Game Awards, while I was exhibiting at Anime North earlier this year, the head of the Canadian Game Awards found my booth. We started talking. He's like, hey, I can help you with this event. Let me know what you need. And then Interactive Ontario was the proverbial final stone in the infinity gauntlet of Ontario game devs when we had an unrelated talk, and then Lucy, bless her heart, thank you, Lucy, said, well, what do you need from us? And I gave my stipulations, and they said, yeah, we can do it. So there it was. It was all there. 7 years of networking, of going to conventions, of talking to people, all coalesced into what was arguably the most insane 2 months of this year for me. And then it came down to, how the hell do I wrangle developers and start inviting people out to this event? Luckily for me, I have 15 years of software development experience, and one of the most important pieces of advice I've ever received from a former manager is always try and write yourself out of a job. Now, look, in the age of AI, it may be, a little controversial to say something like that, but what I mean and what he meant was, when it comes to monotonous tasks, you're not going to spend 2 hours doing the same thing over and over again when you can write a script that will take care of that for you in 5 minutes, right? And especially since I was predominantly organizing this event solo, I needed to ensure that all the monotony was automated as I was going through it. So yeah, there are scripts that I made that took in questionnaires that developers submitted in a CSV and automatically converted everything to PDFs, or applications that I needed to vet that organized everything, in certain columns, so I could quickly vet people, ensuring that they were part of the game dev industry. That's right. I vetted every single application that came in personally for the grid. But we got it done. And so, all that hard work, the lead up to the event, I had some amazing volunteers, amazing staff, amazing judges that helped me on the night of the event. And big thank you to all, because again, in the lead up to that, it was mostly me, but right on the night of, again, all the friends that I made, all the staff that I hired, or not hired, but all that worked with me over the course of those years, I was able to tap into all those resources and call upon them to help me with the event. And we pulled it off. And so we're at the halfway point of the talk right now. I'm going to let this run for a little bit, but I can open up right now for any questions that people may have up to this point. And I'll sort of, if no one has questions right now, I'll sort of describe what's going on. But as you can sort of see here, this was the event. And on the one side of the room, you can see all the developers that have all their games. I set up a little writing nook here, so if anybody had any questionnaires that they wanted to write, they would write it. I could not have asked for a smoother debut. And given everything that sort of went into the event, we literally had to change our layout the day before, because the room configuration was not what I expected it to be. So that night, the day before, I had to, there was a lot of last minute stuff in the lead up to the event that I had to deal with, as all events are. But you can see, look at how many lines of detail these people are leaving right now, right? But again, it just shows all the people that came, they took that seriously. Unity, bless their hearts, $2,000 worth of Domino's pizza that fed everybody over the course of the night. They came in big, they came in huge. But yeah, it was a really fun time. I'll throw it over. Does anyone have any questions right now? One at the back, Kevin. One of my volunteers at the event. Yeah.
Thank you, and hello. Yep. Thank you, Antonio. I want to say, as one of the volunteers for the grid, it's been an absolute pleasure volunteering for the grid and for you. And my question is, will there be another grid session next year for
Stay tuned until the end of the talk, and we'll talk about that. There's stuff in the works, but we'll get to that once we sort of get to the end there. But yeah, it was a hell of a lot of fun. For me, it was a blur. For the folks who attended the event that night, I hope it was a lot of fun. But again, almost all of these devs that attended were either solo teams or small teams that just wanted people to try their stuff. And some of these games were pure prototypes that were only working about half the time. Some others were a lot more polished that, you know, that were ready for more, detailed feedback or more precise feedback in certain areas. It didn't matter. If you're a developer that's working on anything, we didn't care what it was. The only caveat with the event was that you could not have a release date. I'm sorry. If you had a release date for your game, there was no need for you to get any feedback at that point. There's no point. But we were pretty lax and lenient in terms of who came through. We got a question at the back? Yeah?
I don't think I answered my question. Oh, I mean, you can ask me the question. I'll repeat it.
It's yeah. Ask and I'll repeat the question.
All right, that's fine. So it was. I imagine that. Well, you said that's the first.
Yep.
Edition of the event.
Of this particular event, yeah.
And we rely heavily on the relationships you have built.
Yep.
Over 15 years.
Yeah.
And 7 years
Of game dev, yeah. Yeah.
Putting this event together, you have to go corporate, like really corporate.
Ooh.
Agreements.
Ooh, that's a good question.
You just ride on those relationships to wing it and just.
I love that question.
And then you got support from Unity. Did you mandate all the devs to bring all the games built on Unity?
Perfect. Okay, so the question was, did I sell out? Did I go corporate? Did I or did I just wing the event and just rely on the relationships and just fly without a parachute? And then the second part of that question was, did I mandate Unity devs specifically? First and foremost, I did not sell out. I let them buy in to what I was selling. No, I mean, because it was a first time event, there's a paper trail for everything. And while I did not explicitly formalize everything in a contract, I probably should have. Let's be clear. I did not, let's put it this way. There were contracts for certain things, and other stuff was just more of a handshake email agreement, basically saying, we're going to provide you XYZ. I'm not going to say which was which, but it was actually sort of a mishmash of both. Because certain things was, prizing, other stuff was money. Depending on who was giving what, there were certain assurances and certain things that needed to be made or asked. In the second go around, if I do a second go around, that's going to be a lot more formalized, obviously. In terms of mandating Unity and stuff like that, no. You could bring whatever game you wanted to. Unity did not care. And even if they did care, I would say, well, you better not care because people can use any engine they want, right? And we'll get to those stats in a second, actually, which is good. I just want to see how we're doing on time here. We're doing great on time. We're doing fantastic on time. And we're actually at the end of the video too. So, like I said, couldn't have asked for a better debut. So let's get into the results. What the heck happened? So to answer part of your question, we had 24 total developers at the event. This is a chart of what engine everybody was using. Mostly Unity. Pleasantly surprised at the amount of Godot representation we got. With some Unreal Game Maker. Some of them you can't even see on the chart because it might have been like one developer developing in it. But Unity and Godot were sort of the primary two going forward. It would not surprise me if I ran this back again to see a bigger Godot representation. Godot is very, very quickly going to mature. They're not fully mature yet, but they're like when they get to that sort of
mature peak, Godot is going to be a force that Unity and Unreal better take seriously. Especially for game devs who want to endeavor console publishing. Godot is a very attractive option right now for that because of how cheap it actually is to get into consoles on Godot. It's not so cheap for Unity unless you're basically a single seat license. But for Godot, for up to a team of 8, if you want to develop on all 3 consoles, it's cheaper than one pro license for Unity. So little note there for anybody who's aspiring for that. Here's a breakdown of attendees. We sent out 100 tickets. Of the 100, 74 showed up. We also had some stragglers coming in throughout the night as well, so the number might be a bit higher than that. Total of 30 developers plus support staff, supporter representatives or sponsors, and some of the companies represented. We had some big fish in attendance. Torn Banner Studios basically sent their entire QA team at us, which was unbelievable to me, but that's what it was. Reps from Zynga, Unity. I believe we also had 1 or 2 publishers in attendance as well. I have to go back and look at the list, but have a look at the numbers here for all the playtester attendees and how evenly split testers, programmers, artists, music, and rest. It was not a lopsided attendance by any means. But that's the beauty of an event like this and the amount of diverse opinions that you can receive over the course of one night, which I think is fantastic. I was very happy when I ended up sort of looking at the results, that it sort of broke out in this way, which is great. So now let's talk about how people thought the event went. And for those of you who are at the event, you will likely agree with a lot of these points that are going to come through. And for those who don't, some things who weren't at the event, some of these things might shock you. So let's get into it. After the event, I sent out surveys to both playtesters and the developers. So you're going to see perspectives from both sides. So let's talk about it. Good from the playtester end. Dedicated focus. Love the focus on playtesting over showcases. Very obvious. This is a structured playtesting event. Anything that is quote unquote showcase should be reserved for sponsors who are about to release a game because it's more worthwhile for sponsors to get in front of that. Variety and discovery. Appreciated the range of unique games. I didn't include it in the stats here, but we had a good handful of VR titles. A good handful of multiplayer games, single player games, shooters, word games, everything in between. There was not one dominant title or type of game that showed up. So, which was good. Community. I mean, this was probably one of my favorite pieces of feedback that I received on the good side, and it was just due to the fact that because it's all game devs, that means you can network with literally anybody in that room at any time that you want. Whether you're writing whether you're writing down a survey and you're talking to someone else, or whether you're talking to a game dev about their title, there was always opportunities throughout the night to network with small fish, big fish, every fish in between. And then, of course, the direct interaction with developers. A lot of people were very deep in conversation over the course of the night, which is both a good and a bad thing, and I'll explain why in a little bit. The could be better, as I call it. This one shocked me. A lot of people didn't like the paper surveys, and I get it, and I understand that. And it was one of those things where when I saw it, I was like initially shocked, but then I was like, I understand why. Because people don't want to be carrying around, sheets of paper. We're in the digital age. It should all be digital, right? It's not, it's something that, while it didn't initially cross my mind, but when you see it in front of you, when you see multiple people saying that, it's just like, yeah, that makes sense.
Demo length. This one I will fall upon the proverbial sword. Because I did not specify how long demos were supposed to be. And I should have. I should have. Oh boy, should I have. The longest demo we had running over the course of the night was 40 minutes. And in a 3-hour time frame, that does not leave you much time. But again, like that is what their demo is. But I think, and you're going to see a general pattern develop as we sort of go over this. But, and it wasn't until I saw a talk at Fan Expo, and you were at that talk too, I think, where it was Scott Christian of Hilltop Studios, I think, who would answer the question of like, what is the appropriate length for a demo? And he was like, yeah, 10, 15 minutes. And I'm nodding in person, and in my mind, I'm like, no, because I just didn't, I was like, this is something I should have stipulated, but it's true. 10 to 15 minutes should be more than enough time for anybody to get a grasp of what your game is about. And if they have to play longer, then it's not a very effective demo. So that's a stipulation that I should have imposed. Venue and noise in general, again, makes sense. But if there's a lot of people talking, like it is something that I'll look into if I'm looking at future venues. But it was something that certain people had mentioned. And visibility, again, this unfortunately was due to just the general layout. We could not fit everything in one room. We needed more signage to sort of point people to the VR hallway. The way that the venue was, there was a giant sort of main room, and then there was another hallway where all the VR games had a lot of space, which was good. They had a lot of space, but not well promoted, evidently, because people were always looking for the VR games. Luckily, I had volunteers on hand that were able to sort of direct people, but it did get cumbersome. So all valid points, for sure. Now, what did the devs think? And this was the one that I was more nervous about, I would say, versus the playtesters. The passport system. They liked the passport system. At the beginning of the talk, I talked about one of the iterations I wanted to do was just that sort of guaranteed, access. So, one person comes in, you're going to go to zone A. Second person comes in, you're going to go to zone B, etc. They loved it because it meant that they got guaranteed playtests throughout the night, right? Diverse pool of testers provided great insights. I asked some of the devs on average, I asked them sort of how many surveys they got throughout the night. They said somewhere between, I think, 5 and 10, depending on how long their demo lengths were, which is pretty good for a 3-hour time frame. So I was very happy about that. Positive atmosphere, the self-explanatory. And again, they also brought this up, the networking aspect of it. The chance to be able to talk to people, literally about their own games. And that person could be, from a small studio, big studio. You didn't know who was going to show up to sit down and play at your game, but, they had that opportunity to talk to other game devs and to take in their insights. So the gambit of keeping the event just for game devs seemed to work out based on these comments that were received here. That could be better. Logistics, yeah. Again, I'm going to fall on that sword too.
Phew! And that's the end of today's.
It's the simple things that are the easiest to miss. Something as simple as where should you load in? I did not specify that, and I apologize to the devs out there who may be watching. It was a lot. I found that a lot of the issues, and it'll come up a little more, but a lot of the issues around the event were just simple things that were missed. And when I'm one person sort of organizing a lot of the lead up to the event, yes, there are things that could be missed. I should not have missed this, admittedly, but I accept that responsibility and I vow to do better next time. Judging. So remember that talk about demo length? Oh boy, did it affect this. So over the course of the night, I wanted to have judges evaluate the games to give out, eventually at the end of the night, an industry prize. Remember when I talked about some demos being 40 minutes long? Well, in a 3-hour time frame where judges have to evaluate 10 games each, if you're one of those judges playing that 40-minute game, oh boy, do you not have that much time left.
there was this cascading effect that sort of happened where the longer demos basically held the judges up throughout the course of the night. They got through all the games. They just couldn't talk much, and I made sure that they got the gist of each demo in order to give it a fair score line, and then we sort of went from there. Signage, go back to the VR, XR, similar situation with communication. And then this one was more of what we wanted more of, which was dedicated networking tables. Which again, it's one of those things where you see it happen on the night of, but it wasn't one of the initial things that I thought about going into it, but it worked out really, really well. So it's just like, yeah, of course, like it's obvious. Oh, did I double slide this? Yes, I did. Okay. So now you asked the question earlier of what would version 2 look like. This first one is the most important. Keep the event free, but double the size. After applications closed for developers, I received nearly an equivalent amount of emails after the fact for people who missed the deadline and wanted to get in on the fun. I honestly believe we can get at least 50 games for the next event. I think we could get more now that people know about us. But that also means more money. Big thanks to Interactive Ontario for helping me break even at this event, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have. More people means more money, which means I need to ensure that the sponsors, like the amount of sponsorship for the event, will allow me to cover the costs for that. If I don't have that, then I need to figure out another way to sort of raise that money, because keeping the event free is the only non-negotiable for continuing these events going forward. Because again, if you're a small team or a solo team that doesn't necessarily have that opportunity to do it, you could pay a couple $100s to go to a B2B conference and talk to people. But if there's a free opportunity for you to jump in and talk to those same people, why not? I talked about this, restricting demos to 10 minutes. It's very obvious. I need to ensure that people understand, devs understand that, yeah, I think 10 minutes is more than enough to get your point across in a demo. Again, better communication, improve logistics. These are things that I need to improve upon. And maybe if I have more sponsorship money, I can hire someone to help me with that. So sponsors, if you're watching, my door's open. Not as much food. Yeah. Holy crap. There was a lot of pizza at that event, and we did not finish it all by the end of the night. We did not throw any out, though. We were able to distribute the pizza accordingly, and no food was wasted on that evening, but it was very difficult for us to reach that point. So keep the event free. I'm going to say it again, non-negotiable. For devs, for play testers, that was the appeal of the original Game Slice event. That was the appeal of the grid. That needs to be the appeal going forward. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Yeah, at the time I wrote this, I wasn't 100% sure on what I was going to do. An app is in development. My day job, as I said before, was a manager of development for the Toronto Star. But for 5 years before that, I was a senior mobile app developer for the Toronto Star. I know how to build mobile apps. I know how to build mobile apps reasonably well. So making a dedicated app for an event like this, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm figuring out the architecture for that at the moment. And a networking element. I think, when you go paperless, that eliminates the need for a writing nook or a writing corner. So that sort of area can be repurposed as a networking area to some degree. Maybe, you can reach out to people and meet with them. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But I think it's an important element that was found when we did the initial event. The discovery of it was popular with a lot of people, and so we're gonna keep going forward with that. I think that's it. I think you know doing these types of structured playtesting events are important. You can even, if you have a group of game devs that you want to just get together and play each other's games and leave each other feedback. Like, look, I'm doing this on a larger scale, but that does not preclude you from doing it yourselves, obviously. But it was a void that I took a gamble on because I thought there was a need for it. I thought it was something that people would enjoy, and I am very glad that I did it. I am looking forward to a sequel. I do not know when that sequel will be because, again, based on all the caveats I said before. But nonetheless, I want to thank Hand-Eye Society for having me. I want to thank you all for coming out, for all of you on the internet who are watching. I'll still take questions at the end, but if you want to follow me, my socials are there. At Play the Grid on Instagram and Blue Sky, and then at Megapower_games if you want to follow along on my own game dev journeys. But yeah, I mean, this is the end of the talk, but if we got any more questions, let's go. Not necessary, but thank you. Your question. Yeah, you're talking about the demo time. Yep. Like some games demo and 1 to 10. What does that look like? Like a game takes obviously more than 10 minutes to play. So how do you just stop after 10 minutes?
So
Is there an expectation?
yeah, so the expectation would be, and I say 10 minutes, I think we could go up to 15, but the expectation is that the original Game Slice event, it was in the name. It was a vertical slice of your game. So a vertical slice of your game, realistically, is not a complete experience or a set of complete levels. It's usually one level or something like that. And so realistically, if you have a vertical slice of your game, a gameplay mechanic you want to test, or a gameplay loop that you want to test, I would love for you to try and keep it within that. There's obvious exceptions depending on the type of game that it is, especially if you're talking about something like narrative, for example, where there's a lot of reading. I would handle those on a case-by-case basis because if we're going to do judging again, that needs to be accounted for in the scheduling as well. I would still like to set that expectation, but I would need to evaluate those cases on a case-by-case basis, Yep. Yeah, there was other questions, other hands? Yeah.
So I'm curious how you find and select playtesters. I think it's a great idea to
Yeah.
know who's giving the feedback.
It was an open call at the time.
So I guess 2 questions. First is how do you vet people that they are going to be valuable for giving feedback, and how did you market to find them? Was there enough
Perfect.
appetite in the community
Beautiful.
for people to
Yeah.
want to come and participate?
So the question here was how did I vet people, and then how did I market it? So the vetting process, I was trying to think of a sort of quote unquote foolproof method, so to speak. Not foolproof, but in the sense that if you submitted an application, I included specific questions that either entice people to leave a portfolio, a LinkedIn profile, something that would allow me to identify, oh yeah, this person is affiliated with the game dev industry in some way, shape, or form, right? Again, you didn't have to be a straight up coder. You could be an artist, a musician. You could work for a consulting company that serviced video games. That would qualify. I was very loosey goosey in my approach there. And if someone left the application blank and all there was an email, I usually left those to the end to vet, because if you're not going to take the time to fill out a form, well then how do I know that, there were some, I remember we had some people email us close to the event basically saying, hey, why didn't I get in? And the answer was, well, you didn't fill out your form really enough. So to any future playtesters that want to come to the event,
Be detailed, and you'll get it, no problem. And then the second part of your question was marketing. Honestly, we had a lot of help. I had a lot of help from Toronto Games Week because we got the blast from them. Interactive Ontario because they were a big sponsor. They helped, push it out to all their members. As we started to pick up steam, more and more people started to follow along. And again, I had a ticket cap and we hit it within like 2 weeks out from the event. So it was just a lot of different things that I was trying. I knew there was that appetite, and the more people I talked to about the event, the more excited they got. And they were like, "Yeah, I'll tell, whoever, right?" So a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of help from some of the supporters and sponsors as well. So that's what I would say there. Was there another hand? Yes.
I got the idea why you inviting the game dev people to get the more professional ideas.
Yes.
Feedback, but we're still making our games for normal people.
Yes.
Ordinary people, yeah.
Yes.
Why not to invite them and even then divide, split the
Yes.
answers and compare?
That is a very good question. The question was, why the hell did you exclude the general public? I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But no, it's a valid question. And the original Game Slice event actually did exactly what you said. They actually split it. They had a section for game devs and a section for general public. I am not against including the general public in future editions of the event, but I also, from my own experiences and the amount of valuable feedback I received from game devs and the amount, there are 300 plus game dev companies in the province of Ontario alone. So that alone, I knew that there was an appetite and a market for that. And because we held the event during XP, we had a lot of out-of-towners that came into the event as well. Would I consider doing general public in the future? Yeah. Again, I would but this would be like a 6 to 7 hour event. I would need to make sure that if I'm going to keep this event free, I have the money and the sponsorship to cover it. So, and I would do basically exactly what Game Slice would do, is to exactly what you said, split it up. For sure. Yeah. Anyone else? One more from the back. You can just ask me the question and I'll repeat it.
Not really a question, it's more like just to let you know for next year's Toronto Games Week,
Mhm.
it's actually taking the same time as
I know.
NFL will be hosting.
It's FIFA, actually. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's FIFA.
Toronto is hosting FIFA.
I'm well aware. Oh, I'm well aware.
I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of.
Yeah, well, it's so the comment was, yeah, next year's Toronto Games Week is going to be during FIFA season, which is a good opportunity to tap into the general public if we wanted to do something like that. I'm not sure yet in terms of timing, because I believe XP Summit is a month prior. They actually had to do it. I think they're going to be doing it a month prior because of FIFA or something like that. I don't know. It's not 100% confirmed, but these are just things that I've heard. But anyway, yeah. Last call.
Was this cool design?
Yeah, this was Jarvis.
Yeah.
This was the auditorium.
Main one, right?
Yeah, the right at the top of the stairs. You just went right in. Yeah, this was the Jarvis waterfront location at George Brown. Yeah.
You mentioned you need quite a bit more sponsorship money to grow this, and I've never tried to organize an event like this, but I think it's interesting. So, what are the costs to running this?
Sure.
It sounded like the venue was sponsored for you.
Yes. So I'll dive into it a little bit. Venue, there was no cost associated with the venue itself, but there was for insurance, especially event insurance. When you're putting on an event of this size, you need that. The food was covered, but there is a cost for food if we need to order for 150 people. It's Domino's Pizza, but that can still add up. Any prizing that was donated in kind, if you were to take the value of the prizing that we had, it was around 5,000 Canadian. So if we did not have those sponsors, I would have had to shell that money out to get said prizes.
the top industry prize was a Unity Pro license for a year, right? Other ancillary costs when it came to signage, when it came to materials for the event, staff costs. I wanted to have some paid staff that evening. I did not want to overly rely on volunteers. The staff that were paid were staff that had worked for me for years, who had worked on Powerball and were shilling the game at conferences, but never saw a dime. And now they got sponsorship money that's that's paying them. And I specifically told them, I was like, guys, don't get too used to this, because this was sponsorship money. This wasn't coming out of my pocket, kind of thing, right? But yeah, and then other costs that are not coming off the top of my head, but it adds up. And so if you're going to scale up, well, I've already said some numbers, double or triple that, and then that's probably what you'll need. So I'm not holding anything back tonight, folks. I'm telling you. All right, last call, because we've got like a minute left. Okay, beautiful. I'll hand this off. You want me to hand it off to you again, or yeah? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Again, this was fun.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Somebody on the stream said that the grid was so fun that they can't wait for the grid 2.
Okay, that's 2 people now. That's wonderful.
Yeah, well, thank you everybody for being here at the Hand-Eye Society's second day of talks with our live show at Interaccess. We hope that you enjoyed the talks, and we hope that you'll tune in again. We'll be here tomorrow, and we're going to also be at Interaccess again on Thursday. So stay tuned. Thank you very much. Let's go. Phew! And that's the end of today's talks. We hope you enjoyed the festival and learned a lot. We're not done yet, though. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for more Super Festival goodness. In the meantime, be sure to check out the Super Festival website to learn more about the over 20 exhibited games we're showcasing in this year's event, more about our stream schedule, and where you can find our Tron arcade machines scattered across the city of Toronto. I'd also love to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, Clever Endeavour, Charitable Gaming, the Kennedy Road Charitable Gaming Association, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto, as well as the following contributors for their support and their donations in kind, to help make Super Festival 2025 even greater. Be sure to check out the games of Super Festival, and I'll see you tomorrow for more insightful game talks. Good night, everyone!